Okay, time for another Q&A. For most of these, I haven't had a chance to look at. I've seen a few, so I'll be seeing them for the first time. First one, what is causing the low sample size in the jobs report? So um, you have a sampling technique, right? So this is the sample that you got to come up with, but it's got to look like the population, which means you can't just have large companies. You have to have some medium-sized companies. You have to have some small companies, some really small companies. When it comes to below a certain size, that's where the sample size really starts to drop off. Because if you are a small business with some problems, you really just don't have the time to fill out that survey in time. So there is a timeline at which it gets cut off, that all the surveys come in, sets up whatever N that you have. But the N will continue to grow over time. There is a bias in the data between those that report early and those that report late. So that by the time you get the full N, you get the full picture. So the revisions are actually a better data point than the original statements. The revisions are a symptom of the delay in reporting. The revisions to the new number are a reflection of a lower standard error. So it is in fact better data because it has a lower standard error, because N goes up. We know our standard error is whatever the volatility of or the standard deviation of the sample divided by the square root of N, and as N increases, your standard error decreases. In the past, you deployed a synthetic on TLT until early 2026. Should TLT not go up, how would you leave your synthetic position? I would let it be assigned. Just close it and take the loss? Nope. What are your plan for applied option series? Is there a certificate to come? For the options, more than likely a Q bank, which sets up a scenario and then asks you out of three options which trade makes the most sense. It's difficult to find real live cases because you got to find a stock that is setting up the way that you want it to describe it in a scenario. You can go through 50, 60, 70 charts before you find what you're looking for. It's really time consuming. So you just manufacture scenarios. More than likely going to do that. You plan to show how to use Risk Navigator in IBKR Trader Workstation for managing portfolio risk. I already did. I believe I've shown that a couple of times, how to use that. Any thoughts on the Figma IPO? No. No thoughts on it at all. As part of the broader AI tech bubble, well, we know it's there. The argument made that the valuation is a very high premium for the underlying metrics and people are simply buying for the AI hype. No, not in this market. People are buying stuff based on hype? No. This is news to me. I'm shocked to find out there's gambling going on here. Could this be one of the clearest bubble indicators yet? Well, lots of bubble indicators. Would it make for a good short candidate? Never. Momentum never makes for a good short candidate. And irrational momentum absolutely does not make for a good candidate unless you really know how to play those options. Being that it is just IPO'd, I'm not sure what its options picture would look like. Not too familiar how the jobs data is collected and therefore not aware what typically causes the revisions. Already did that. Recently discovered the Substack of economist Paul Krugman. I'll be enjoying it very much. Are you familiar with him? Yes, I am. Love to hear your thoughts on him and his work. Little left leaning for me. You said last month Lulu had to fall to 210, 200 for you to start selling puts. Are you considering that now? Already have. I got 3 different strikes on that one. Every word you said in the market outlook for June 8th. What job strength? Came true. I highly recommend never going back to June 8th. Interrent keeps sinking. Is there something going on? No. It just sets up a better opportunity. I keep buying. I put my last bid out was for another, I think, 6,000 at 13.17. Never got it. Capreed is now accused of price fixing in a class action lawsuit. There's always a class action lawsuit going on on almost every stock, there's a class action lawsuit going on. And it's usually the same group of ambulance chasers. A stock price went down. Oh, did you lose money? Let's sue them. And then you join the class action. And all you got to do is give this much money. If everyone gave this much money, we could cover the legal fees. And you realize it's really just for you to give them some legal fees. Every stock has a threatened class action. Almost every single stock has a threatened class action against it. So, yawn. Governor Kugler's resignation could be a bigger deal than you realize. Trump can demote Powell but not fire him. The chair is considered an at-will appointment. Trump can then appoint the new person. I don't see that he's going to do that. He's probably going to appoint somebody that will now have 3. Adding to the 2 votes to cut will now include 3 votes to cut. Are you looking forward to Venmo the U.S. Treasury to help pay down the national debt? You can do that in Canada too. You can, when you pay your taxes, you can give CRA a gift. You can send them more money if you want. I don't know anyone who really does that. They're not a charity. And at least when you give a charity money, some of it finds its way into helping people. If you give the government money, that just gives them license to spend even more. You're actually not helping them. It's like, you're paying off your kid's credit card every time they get into debt. You're not actually helping them, right? They'll just do it again. I would not bother with that. You short a stock, you get the risk-free rate from the proceeds of the short selling. Depends on your broker, but you have to pay the dividend to the owner. You do. So the price of the put will be lower because of the interest rate. Yep. And increased for the dividend. Basically, yeah. What about the cost of borrowing? When you short a stock, you will need to pay the owner a fee for borrowing his stock to later sell it. Yeah, so you should look at the borrow rate, what the fee to borrow is. Most of the time, it's like 20 basis points, 25 basis points. It's really low. But yeah, there is a cost. Is this cost included in the price of a put? No. Well, I shouldn't say no. You could argue that it is if you have implied volatility that's any different than, let's say, just an average implied volatility. You could argue that, well, some of it is because of that some of that is the cost of carry. Wouldn't it be more efficient to short a stock, buy a long put instead of shorting it directly? You do have limited loss because all you can lose is the amount you paid for the put. Anyone find the report about controlling for the decrease in the labor force? The unemployment rate would be up around 4.8 or 4.9. I saw it on it was on somebody had it on their YouTube video of all the ones I tend to just kind of watch in the background. I saw that one. I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. Also, long ZQ. You can do it yourself. All you have to do is just go back the last couple of months since Trump's been in office and look at all the negatives for the loss in the size of the labor force, and then increase the labor force by the amount that the population increases on average. And I think that's what they did, is just say, well, what if these negative numbers weren't there? Long ZQ May 26, but as Powell once said, they get to peek at the reports if they are released in the following days. When the PCE report put more pressure on ZQ on Wednesday's Powell speech, I assume the Friday's job report would be excellent. Therefore, I closed all my positions. Thursday afternoon, losing most of the gains I had made for the year to date. Think I'm buying again after the release of the jobs report. Pretty convinced of this hypothesis when I saw the report. ZQ skyrocketing, I just couldn't believe it. Well, yeah, no, I've done that too. Where you're one day too early, where you close a position that just doesn't look like it's working, and then the very next day it's like, ha, ha, ha. It's like the market knows And it's just bringing billions and billions of dollars to bear on your position just to laugh at you. Yes, I have felt that way myself quite a few times. How do you manage positions in psychology or events like this? I am willing, when I take a position, I'm willing to see it through. If it's moving against me and I still have my conviction, I'm willing to see it through. But if it really moves, and you look at how much it's moved by and how much you think is left, and there's most of the move is in, like for example January ZQ, I felt most of the move was in. It was pricing in 2.5 cuts. The best you're gonna get is 3, unless they go 50-50-50 in 3 meetings, 150 points by the end of the year. But I don't think that's this Fed. So I felt, okay, well, I'll take my gains at this point. But all year long, I mean, when it pulled back, I added more. When it went up, I lightened up. When it pulled back, I added more. I just kept doing that. Had it pulled back that day, had the jobs report been strong and it really pulled back, I would have added more. You're never going to get it right all the time. Sometimes you will not sell when you should have sold. Sometimes you'll sell when you should not have sold. Other times you'll sell pretty much when you should have sold, and you'll buy pretty much when you should have bought, but call it about a third of the time. A third of the time you'll be okay. A third of the time you'll be too early. A third of the time you'll be too late. The problem is if you're always too late or always too early, then you have a bias. But you're never always going to be just right on time. Big inheritance tax for non-U.S. citizens that hold you. I already answered this. I am not a resident of the U.S. It does not affect me at all. But having permission to cut, do you believe Powell's course of action in not cutting was necessary in upholding the independence of the Fed? Not really, because he could have worded it. He could have used the press conference to put it in perspective. He could have worded it. He could have said, yeah, we've had pressure, but it is time. It just so happens to coincide with the pressure, but it is time. I mean, he could have handled it. So I think simply a battle of egos, more to do with Powell's legacy. Yeah, I kind of think that that's a little bit of his thinking in here, is that it's no longer objective anymore. About Kimi K2, what technical things you used it for? Well, technical. Anything that would be mathematical or algorithmic, anything technical. You once said that for every argument, whether for or against in finance, economics, social sciences, one can usually find empirical data supporting both sides. Yep. Do you think this is because we live in a complex system? Precisely because we live in a complex system. So there are always arguments to do something and always arguments against it. That's not the point. That's completely missing the point. The point is not about, look at all the evidence that supports what I want to do. Because the other side can say, but look at all the evidence that says you shouldn't do it. Wrong argument. The only argument is, what are the trade-offs? Right? If I do this, what are the trade-offs? Not what arguments do I have to do it and what arguments are against. You always find those. The debate should be about, what are the trade-offs? How do we ever know if we're making the right decision? As everything has empirical data to support it. I don't know that so much that there are right decisions, but you could take 10 decisions and they're all good or bad depending on their outcome, but their outcome depends on their execution. You can make a good decision with bad execution and you get a bad outcome saying, oh, that was a bad decision. So you have to separate the decision from the execution. And I would seem to think that, there are no bad strategies. There's just bad execution. That somebody can come up out of nowhere and say, I'm going to do this. And you would think, oh, come on. And then they do it. No one thought Trump would win in the first term. Not with the stuff he was doing and saying. But he did. Right? He did. So I don't know that I would focus so much on the decision as I would on the execution. You can make a decision to do something that is way outside of the norm that everyone else does, but if you execute well, it will be seen as brilliant in hindsight. You could make a decision that everyone else is doing, so it's a safe decision, but execute really badly, and somebody would say, well, you made a bad choice. It's like, well, no, you made a choice. The choice is neither good or bad. You got to see the outcome. If the outcome is good, then it was a good choice. If the outcome is bad, it was a bad choice. Going to university was a bad choice. I ended up with no job and a lot of debt. No, going to university was bad execution. You didn't study, you had a C average, and no one was going to hire you after that, and you went to a third-tier university. Your choice of going to university wasn't bad. How you handled it was, right? So don't worry about making the right or wrong decision. Worry about the execution. Remember, you told that movie actors are not smart or intelligent when it comes to having their own opinion about certain controversial matters. I don't know. I say they're not smart or intelligent, but there's nothing about them that makes their opinion any more important than yours. And for the most part, many of these people lack any higher education. Some of them are just outright stupid, but they're famous. Couldn't understand your reasoning behind why you would consider movie actors population less smart or intelligent. No, I didn't. To me, it seems some of these actors might be intelligent and smart. Okay, well, I know where you're going. If you were to pick a career path based on your knowledge and experience, which one would you interested in? Please explain. Equity research, asset management, investment bank, wealth management, private equity. Asset management or private equity? No wealth management. I'm not a relationship person. Same with commercial banking. I'm not really a relationship person. Investment banking, too high pressure. Equity research, not enough action. So either asset management or private equity. Last time 2 Federal Reserve members dissented at a meeting was 93. Is this important? I don't think so. Can this be political? Sure. Powell's term as governor ends in January 28. And he can choose to remain that role. No, his role as chair ends in May of 26. He can choose to stay on the board. Is this important? I mean, it could be or it could not be. I don't think so. I believe even if he can, he won't. He probably won't. He's probably getting lots of offers right now to do a whole bunch of things. There's probably a university with an offer right now. That's pretty standard for these guys. Lots of probably board seats. He can write a book. I mean, that would be interesting. He's gone through 2 Trump terms. He's gone through the pandemic. I mean, I think that would be an interesting read. There's lots he can do. He'll make way more money outside the Fed than inside. His paycheck's $180,000 a year. That's it. $180 a year. That's it. Do you think Powell, by repeatedly praising the dissenters' argument during press conference, was subtly signaling that he agreed with them, but the final decision is just too politically driven? No, I think he was just trying to be as diplomatic as possible, saying, look, by showing that, there is no schism on the committee, that this is normal and we're all friends and this happens, it's okay, right? Just trying to show that, we're not divided. This is what we do. This is the point of the committee, is so that we have a whole bunch of opinions. We don't want to always all think alike. Looking for the fact sheets, look in my channel, Dr. Mark Feed, and just scroll up, you'll see the link. Have you ever thought about it, or do you have any plans to make new Applied series videos and content on geopolitics theme? That's not really my thing. That's way outside of what I do. Peter Zihan on YouTube, I think, does a good job of that. Infographics, the pace and the way they are being uploaded is going to make remembering where I've been a hassle. As far as I can see, the market's complete feature isn't as useful as it is with the videos. Any way to keep track of which trees I've been down? I would say I don't know that there's a point to reading all of them. I put up a bunch of earnings ones, and this earnings Q2 was a test to see if anybody really wanted them. They take about 20 minutes to half an hour to do, so it's not like they're easy to do. They are time consuming. If I were going to do more, I'd have to find a way to speed up that process. But some companies I know nothing about. So I see them reporting earnings, and it's a fairly big name, and I think, but I know nothing about this company. So for me to go through all of it and to fact check everything and to make sure that these are in fact the 20 right things doesn't seem like a lot of a good use of my time. And the LLM really isn't there yet. You have to use Notebook LM. If you don't use Notebook LM, these things will start grabbing stuff from 3 years ago. They'll start talking about stuff that, if you say Q2 2025, some of them say, oh, that date hasn't happened for me. So they imagine facts, and you read it, go, but that never happened. So you have to get all of the data that you can, give it to Notebook LM so that it only refers to that stuff. And then sometimes, even in referring to that stuff, it comes up with useless stuff. You read it and you think, okay, well, who cares about that? It would be like all the statements made are made under a safe harbor statement. Well, of course they are. I mean, but that's not something, so for some companies, I know them so well that I can work. It's quicker, but some I don't know well enough, and the output's about 80% good. It's not 100% good. It's about 80% good. So it does take work to do. So you start with LM, Notebook LM. You get your points, and then you use whatever LLM you want to turn your bullet points into sentences, as opposed to me writing sentences. It'll write the sentences for me. That's where it saves me the time, but it does not remove the thinking from me. So it is time consuming. And some reports like Palantir, that was bloody difficult to work with. I tried as much as I could with Palantir, and then I did it on my own. And I ran into the same problem the LLMs have. Take any company and put its earnings press release, put its 10Q, put its any analyst report that you can find on it, because analysts usually will release updates either that night or the next morning. And then the conference call, the transcript from the earnings call, give it all to the LLM and ask for, the important points. If it's too glowing, it means the LLM is relying too much on management commentary, because management commentary is always glowing no matter how bad the situation is. Oh, we did this, we did that, it was another great quarter. No, it wasn't. So then you say, you got to say it in more objective tone, or find me the negative points. And you'll always find negative points, except for Palantir. I found that very odd. It was nothing but good points. And I said, you're being too subjective. Don't take management's word for it. Give me 5 negative points about this. Couldn't come up with anything. One analyst pointed out that international sales were down 10%. So I tried to find that in the statements, couldn't find it. You have to back out the numbers over a couple of quarters to isolate international to find out. You had to do the work. Well, this guy brags about everything. So if international was good, I guarantee you he would have said it. But the LLM could find no bad news in anything that they put out. That's odd. There's always bad news. There's always something. But this was written to be bulletproof to bad news. I think what they did is they said, okay, let's give all of our stuff to the LLM, and let's have the LLM write our press release and write everything up such that it itself could not find bad news. Don't lie, but let's make sure that no LLM can find bad news, because you can't. Take Palantir's statements and take any reasoning model you want and try to find bad news in them. You can't. That's unheard of. So I think that it was purposely designed to make the bad news very hard to find, even by an LLM, because I've never seen that. So I looked at it. I tried a number of times. And I couldn't get it to tell me anything negative, and that just cannot be. It just cannot be. So I just decided, okay, well, this is not working. What was the question? Oh yeah, the infographics and the pace at which they're going up. Yeah, so I don't really think you have to read everything. Next earnings, I'm probably going to try to hit maybe 75 to 100. No one's really interested in 75 to 100 companies. I would say just focus on what you're interested in. But to try to read everything, you're going to forget almost everything you read. Focus on a few things. Food products, 6 calls, brand equity, tangible. Yeah, that's probably my fault. The autocorrect, when I type things in, if I type a word wrong, it changes it to something else. So I probably typed the word in wrong, and it probably meant you mean tangible. Just corrected it, and non-farm payrolls drive changes in unemployment. Why is non-farm payrolls considered a coincident indicator when the unemployment rate is lagging? The unemployment rate is lagging, but the jobs report is really just for the previous month. It is kind of lagging, but it's as coincident as you're going to get, I think, for that type of data. The best coincident data is initial claims. Jobs report, unemployment rate, they are lagging. The unemployment rate is more lagging. If non-farm payrolls drive changes in unemployment, yeah. And initial claims leading, even though they have, I don't know that I'd say they're leading. They're coincident. I don't know that I'd call them a leading. Maybe they're a leading indicator of the jobs report. They lead the jobs report, but it seems more coincident to me. There used to be auctions on eBay for human organs. Oof. Should it be allowed or not? No, I don't think that should be allowed. No, I don't think so. You got to think about the unintended consequences, right? Because that's what you get. You get trade-offs. One argument is, but it's my kidney. Should I not be free to sell my own kidney to whomever I want? Sell it to the highest bidder? Then organs would not go to the most deserving human. They'd go to the wealthiest humans, right? Maybe the wealthiest human isn't the most deserving human. So you have to have some kind of system that is objective. Also, if you could sell your organs, what about people who are in a tough financial situation who feel, well, I have no choice, but I can do this. I can start selling these things. Maybe that's not the best choice. Some people have to be protected from themselves because they make bad choices, right? There's the link for infographics, by the way. What do you think about XRP? I don't follow this stuff. Any thoughts on Trump posts on social media? Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican and the hottest ad out there. Well, of course you would think it is, but here's the thing. She is before this ad, she was trending. I mean, she, as far as an A-list celebrity, she was clearly an A-list celebrity, and she's hot and she's young. Period. End of story. So if you're American Eagle and you want to sell jeans, if that is your target demographic, that age, this is the hottest commodity in that age group right now. And you're selling jeans, and she's hot. She has good genes. She won the genetic lottery. I didn't see it as, oh my God, it's white supremacy. I thought, clever play on words. You got somebody who won the genetic lottery. I have good genes, and you're selling genes. Oh, okay, I get it. It's clever. And Sydney Sweeney is hot. Nice on the eyes, right? This I think is the last gasps of these left idiots, trying to still grab a little bit of the spotlights that's left. And look how quickly that was put away. Look how fast that was done. American Eagle didn't back down. Those days are over. Those days are done when these nobodies would say, oh, I'm offended, who would take something and imbue it with the worst possible motives that you could possibly think of, the worst interpretation, and then run with it as if that was the intention all along. I mean, a show of hands. Who thought that Sydney Sweeney was saying, yeah, that's some real white nationalist shit. I'm in. Sign me up. Who? I mean, you really got to be a sicko to think, oh, white nationalism. Oh, white supremacy. You got to be a real sicko. And that's why we were so sick and tired of all that woke bullshit. Because that's all it was just a bunch of bullshit. And I for one, am glad to see that it was killed on the spot, and that the company didn't back down, and nobody apologized, and nobody explained, because you don't have to. It's done. It's over. We're not going back to that shit. It's done. All of that created Trump today. All of that created Trump. And the more that side does this shit, the more you can guarantee that you will have this type of leadership going forward. It should not be allowed, should be investigated. And whoever, that's about the kidneys, the organs on eBay. Curious to get your views on the chemical sector in the U.S., specifically for a company like Dow that sells specialty chemicals. Thought they would be somewhat immune from an economic slowdown. Well, the specialty chemicals are to some degree, I wouldn't say immune, they're cyclical, but they're higher margin. Whereas commodity chemicals, you have thin margins, but there is a more solid level of demand for it than specialty chemicals, but much bigger margins. I read the recent Q2 earnings, and it seems like all the markets they sell into are oversupplied. And ex-US demand has fallen off for specialty chemicals. Worst case scenario of high supply, low demand for chemicals. I'm not familiar with Dow's earnings or anything they said, so I can't really comment on that. Difference between analysis and evaluation. So analysis is you give me a situation, and out of that situation I say, okay, well, these are the important things. I extract out the important points. Some things I ignore, some things I extract. I've analyzed the situation. Now I must evaluate what I have left to determine, which direction to go, which is the better option. If you are thinking about, I need to change my life. Analysis is, well, what are my options? That's analysis, right? What are the options I have that speak to my strengths and not my weaknesses? And you come up with a list of options. There's your analysis. Okay, well, which one is the better one to go? That's evaluation. Can you tell me in brief, what do you look out for in any good analysis and evaluation? I can't tell you in brief. I can't tell you that. I mean, give me a situation, I can tell you, but I off the top of my head, I don't have an answer for that. Even if we check the sources given by the LLM, don't you think the sources could be full of errors? Left bias, right bias, yeah. And people, well, I mean, gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. There's no bias in that. If the LLM tells you it's 12.6, well, then it's wrong. So there's fact checking, which Numbers are numbers. There are certain facts that are certain facts. The interpretation of those facts may be left-leaning or right-leaning, but facts are facts. Some things you can check. If an LLM says God is real and everyone's going to heaven, well, that's not a fact. That's an opinion. You can't fact check that. That's an opinion. You can agree or disagree with it, but Nietzsche said that everyone should just go to hell and leave him alone. You can fact check that. He never said that, right? Like some things are are facts that you can check. Facts don't have a bias one way or another. Age of AI, how can we prevent ourselves from outsourcing all the cognitive effort to machines? Especially in tasks, we should be thinking and doing the mental work ourselves. Then do it. You just asked and answered your own question. Just do it. Do it yourself, right? Do you think there won't be a material impact of 35% tariffs on Canada? No, I don't think there won't not be. What you're suggesting would not happen if it happened. As it excludes USMCA. 85% of stuff is under USMCA. 90% of Canadian exports to US currently qualify. RBC estimates the average effective tariff rate on Canadian exports roughly 5% or lower. Well, we are mostly covered by USMCA, and with what Trump is doing with these tariffs, is more than likely the courts are going to side against him because he is going way beyond the clauses that he needs, way beyond. And if the court is honest to the law, they will say, look, this is a massive overstep. This belongs to Congress. And put it back where it belongs. I put a very high probability on him losing, and probably a better than 50% chance the Supreme Court won't hear the case. That if he loses this one and appeals to the Supreme Court would reject to hear the case, saying it is a settled matter. It has been settled. There's no need for us to deal with it because it's not a constitutional issue. This is just separation of powers. It is an overreach, and two courts have decided. This could be over in a couple of weeks. But the way he's handing them out, it's like they're his to hand out. India is now at 50%. You didn't listen to me. Here's 50%. Brazil, you're bothering a friend of mine. Here's some tariffs for you. Well, I mean, and Canada 35. Come on. And the way he's handing them out, this more than likely is a massive overreach, and the court, and we'll get a decision by mid-August on this. So in another week, this could all be over. They'll appeal to the Supreme Court, but if the Supreme Court refuses to hear it, saying, no, it is a settled matter, it doesn't need us, then that's the end of it. Unless Trump declares martial law and sets aside the Constitution, that is the end of it. But he won't go away. He won't stop. And there is a good possibility he just might not even listen to the court. In which case, you got a bigger problem in the U.S. S&P 500 multiple is fairly close to the current Fed model's implied justified PE of 23.77. Does the Fed model in times of normalized rates provide any useful guidance? Is it actually used anywhere? Not really. I've never used it. I don't. I get the idea of competition for yield. You can always just buy the 10-year, but I don't see them as interchangeable that way. So I don't bother with it. New earnings summaries are helpful. You can probably charge for these in the near future. I don't think I will. Would be helpful if they could include a brief stock valuation analysis. At some point, I've got to offload the work to you. At some point, you've got to do your own work on this. Once I start doing that, then it's, where do you stop on that? This is really just, if you want to get to know a company quickly, here, 20 things you really should take away from the earnings. If you don't take anything else away from it, you should take these things away from it. But to start doing valuations, it's not that straightforward. That's so much more work to do. So much more work. And if it's algorithmically driven, then you're trying to use the same algorithm on every company, whether they're asset light, asset heavy, regardless of their capital structure, regardless of their age, whether they're a newer company, regardless of the technology they have. I mean, without eyes on it and an analyst's eyes on it, you end up with just this one size fits all that doesn't satisfy anybody, right? So I really don't want to go down that road of doing that stuff. I really don't want to do that at all. Everything you add adds time, and you got to multiply that by how many times you want to do it, right? You say, well, let's just put a stock chart on. Well, you got to open up the stock chart, and then what are you looking at? A 1 year, a 6 month? Do I put any technical lines in there? And if I do that, should I put some commentary in there about it? If I do that, should I not have some? You see where I'm going with that? Is that if I put a chart in there, you can look it up. You can add a chart yourself. You can add whatever lines you want. No, that is a whole mountain of work. And now you're wading into things that you can't compete with. Because now you're trying to be a data provider, right? Or if not a data provider, you're going to need better data. You're going to have to pay for this data feed and that data feed. You're going to have to find some way to automate this while still customizing it. I can feel the headache starting right now. I would not. No. I'll do this part. Somebody wants to go further, they can, but I'll do this part. Wondering if you look back on your career, do you think you'd still be where you are today? Excuse me, relying solely on your finance expertise without the psychological insight you've developed. You mean if I were unidimensional? I don't know. Here's the thing. It would be difficult, and I think this is a fairly generalizable statement. I think many of you could probably look at your own lives and say, yeah, you're right. I think it would be difficult to have the cognitive ability to be an expert in a particular domain without having the curiosity of looking in other places. That you naturally, if you have the drive to become an expert, it means you have within you curiosity. It will not stop. That curiosity doesn't stop at the boundaries of your domain. You're going to like documentaries. You're going to like the Space Channel. You're going to like those episodes about the planets. You're going to those episodes about ancient Egypt and History Channel. You probably would have been into that. Your mind is just curious. That you would naturally fall outside of the boundaries of your domain anyways. So I don't know that you would find an expert in any one domain that only knows that one domain, that's an expert in that domain, because to get there you would have had a sense of curiosity which doesn't know any borders. That's a good way to say it. Or has that deeper understanding of human behavior and mindset played a bigger role than we often give it credit for? Curiosity is probably one of the greatest gifts you can have, because curiosity will do this for you. You don't have to try to learn other things. You will naturally seek it out. It will just be something you do. You'll no longer read, these romance novels because you think, what am I reading this for when I could read this biography of this person and this biography of that person and just the richness of it, I think you would just seek it out. If I wanted to develop psychological skills, where would you suggest I start? Be a good observer of human behavior. Philosophy is good, and some of the psychological authors, they're I wouldn't call them psychological authors. They were referred to as psychological novels. But the Russians were probably the best at this. Tolstoy, Dostoevsky were probably some of the best at this. Even though job market employment data gets compromised, do they understand that the market is too smart to realize such case and develop its own proprietary indicators? You think the market is too smart? We've always heard the wisdom of crowds. I've referred to it for a long time now as the stupidity of the crowd. Not the wisdom of the crowd, but the stupidity of the crowd. Example, independent private sector bodies like MSCI or any other think tank or institutions with good economic and finance pedigree would come up with alternative sources of data and indicators. That's not cheap. It's not cheap to do this. I think BLS had a budget somewhere of like a little over 10 million. I think it was like, was it like 9 or 10 million? And I forget if that was per quarter, per job report, or per year. I forget, but data collection, I can tell you right now, is not cheap. As a PhD student, you will at some point have to get data. Some of that data is going to be difficult to get without a grant, which means you're going to have to apply for a grant to be able to hire or to be able to pay some other firm to collect the data that you're going to need. It's expensive unless you're using existing databases, but they've been peeled over. If it's a public database, they've been used and used and used. You're probably not going to find anything really interesting in there. I don't know a private company would do this without a subscription fee, a significant subscription fee. Data collection is bloody expensive. Now, ADP gives you this number because they process payrolls. So they don't go out and survey. It is called exhaust, business exhaust. They naturally just spit off the data, so why not use it? They don't have to go out of their way for it. But it is really expensive to get, so I don't know that you'd get a private company that starts publishing the number for the sake of just publishing the number, not without some subscriptions to pay for it. Yeah. Do you think that is what we will see if jobs data gets compromised with manipulation or plausible deterioration? No, again, just with the cost of it, I don't think so. I think we would just live with it until a new administration is put in place. Can we say that if the government runs a surplus of 1% of the debt every year, real GDP growth equals real interest rate on the debt, then the debt will be fully paid off in exactly 100 years? No. Oh, runs a surplus. Oh, I thought you said a deficit. Runs a surplus of 1% and uses that 1% to pay down the principal. Well, then the debt wouldn't continue to grow. But why would you ever pay off the debt? I don't understand that. The problem isn't the debt. The problem is the trajectory that we're on, or that the U.S. is on. There will always be debt, and there must be debt. There must be debt. That's the point. If there was no debt, there'd be no U.S. Treasury market. What would people do with their U.S. dollars? If you want king dollar, if you want most of the trade around the world to be denominated in U.S. dollars, if you don't want threatening the BRICS if they move away from the U.S. dollar standard, you must give all of these central banks around the world something to hold on to when they have U.S. dollars. You have to have a treasury market. If you're going to have king dollar, you must have a treasury market, which means you must have debt. So the U.S. is not $37 trillion in debt. At any instance, I'd say 60% is considered really good. If GDP is 30 trillion, 60% is 18. So the US is really $18 trillion in debt because you would run 18 trillion anyways just as working capital. just to function, just to say the dollar needs this much to function. Even if you say 70%, you're at 21 trillion. 21 trillion, 7 trillion is held internally, you're at 30. You really only got to get that down 9 trillion, really, which is doable. So it's not a matter of paying off all the debt. You'd never pay off all the debt. Even if they brought it from 37 to 33, well, GDP went from 30 to 35 or 36. Suddenly, wow, you're less than 100%. You don't really need much at this point. The big thing is stop this silly, silly deficit, right? But until that's the big problem, is a deficit. But you'd never go to zero debt. Much like any company would never go to zero debt, because we do know that you can get a better cost of capital by using debt, which maximizes the value of the firm. So some debt in the capital structure is optimal. Same with the government. Charlie Munger said in 2011, I think Donald Trump has quality that makes him unsuitable as president, such as vainglory, puffery. You can go on and on. Well, yeah, he is at the heart of it, a rather small man, very thin skin, and everything has to has his name. He's got to be. He wants glory all the time. He wants to be loved. He's a very small man in a role that is far, far too big for him. Now, maybe this attitude worked in New York real estate, where maybe that's sort of the winning formula, where you threaten and bully and just push your way through. Maybe that works there, but at the level of diplomacy, no. That's not the personality that works there. Those are not the traits. Those are not winning traits at all. So he is in a role that is far, far too big for the size of who he is. I will agree with that. He is wholly unsuited for the job. Wholly unsuitable to be considered the leader of the free world. Yeah. I agree with that 100%. When a security has a large sell-off and you would like to buy it, is always a rule of thumb to let it base before adding. Well, it depends on how you want to buy it. If you're buying the stock itself, then yeah, I would let it base out. Much like copper, I'd let that base out, right? But let's just take a stock and let's say it's just dropping. Well, what's going to happen to implied volatility is it's going to spike, so that by the time you look at the money put over here, the premium will be really nice, which might give you a break even down here. Now you can let it base out, right? But then implied volatility is going to drop straight down. You may lose these nice big premiums, but there's your entry point. Once it bases out, you'd say, okay, there's my entry point. But you might do very well with the premium. So when it falls, do you wait for it to base, or do you say, look, if I wait, all of this implied volatility is going to go away. Let me sell some 30 delta puts at this high implied volatility. That's what I wanted to do with copper. Copper had that big drop down. IV was 81%. On the bid and the ask, the market makers had nothing. There was nothing. There was no liquidity. Now implied volatility is like, what, 22%? So now I'm just going to let it base out before I sell puts, because I'm not getting paid to sell the put right now. I'm not getting paid enough. So on that one I will. But with the stock, if there's a bid and the ask, if the market maker's still making a market, you'll have higher implied volatility. You might want to take some of that, right? What are your thoughts on playing energy or utility companies for the AI trend? Well, I don't know. I keep going further back in the supply channel and get to copper. So I am playing it with the metal that is the base of everything. You want to move an electron from this point to this point, you're going to need copper. What type of electricity? It could be nuclear. So I'm screwed if I went electric. If I went to electric utilities, because now that's nuclear and the utility I'm holding doesn't have any. Well, I'll go nuclear instead. Well, what if it's wind, solar, and all that? Well, then I should have gotten the green companies. That's the one that won. No matter where you go, you need copper. No matter where you go, you need copper. Period. Right? So I am playing it, but a little further back in the supply chain with copper. Also, do you have a view on the Canadian energy sector, with Carney being a classical liberal and supporting the sector through Bill C5? Well, it's going to take time to build out whatever they want to build out. You got to get a pipeline across all the way to Quebec, because we got refineries there. Why are we sending it to the Gulf Coast just to buy our gasoline back? Let's just send it there. But that's going to take time. But that's still going to help the Canadian economy in the meantime. I think if you are looking at Canada, I think Canada's natural gas resources will do better sooner than the oil resources. However, much of the Canadian energy sector is just a nice annuity, a nice growing, small but growing annuity at this point. The sector returns a lot of capital to shareholders, so you do get paid to wait. So they all have nice, really big dividends. Same with most of the miners in Canada, that they all have really nice big dividends, like north of 5%, 6%, 7%. So you get paid to wait. So I see it as a nice place to park money that gets me better than a money market rate. And this stuff's not going away. So, I don't mind waiting. And that gets us through the end of this. It is... what time we got? 5:30 on a Wednesday. In 24 hours, I'll be sitting in a Toronto airport waiting for my flight to leave to Costa Rica. So the market outlook this Sunday will be from Costa Rica. I have one more exam session in the morning. Then I drive to Toronto, or get driven to Toronto. I fly out, and then I got one more exam session tomorrow. I do I'll be in Costa Rica till the end of October. So there'll be, I think, 8 market outlooks from Costa Rica. We'll see if we can get any sunsets in there as well. Okay, that's it.